Mayor-elect Zohran Mamdani wants to extend, he says, a helping hand to people in homeless encampments.
And Mamdani says he will end a policy from the Adams administration, and the city will no longer break up encampments when he takes office.
And Michelle and Zohran Mamdani says that breaking up those homeless encampments is inhumane and not the right approach in dealing with homelessness. Mayor-elect says that connecting homeless individuals with supportive housing or permanent housing will be his administration's approach. Not long after Eric Adams took office, there were a number of high-profile crimes committed by homeless individuals, which led to his administration's policy of having the NYPD enforce quality of life violations and break up those encampments, which again, Mamdani says is the wrong tactic.
Well, it looks like good old Zohran Mamdani has finally found a campaign promise that he can actually fulfill. Because after all, free buses, universal childcare, state subsidized groceries, those things are expensive and unfeasible anyway. But you know what he actually can do and what he's always truly been serious about? Increasing the homeless population and encampments around New York City. Because of course, that's what everyone asked for, right? Give a round of applause for Zohran Mamdani, guys. Now, if you voted for him thinking to yourself, oh, well, he actually cares about affordability. He's here to help out the average working man. I don't know what to tell you. It's always been the case. And by the way, it's very clear from his policies that might sound good. They might sound populist. But if you can critically think about anything, that his agenda was always to turn New York City into a haven for the third world. And that's clear with the crime policy. It's clear now with this policy that he will no longer be cleaning up homeless encampments and clearing those people off. Apparently doesn't matter where they are, right? And even I would argue, as it pertains to the free stuff, it even operates in that regard too. Because as I pointed out, what actually will be the logical outcome of free buses, right? Who's going to use them? Who's going to take advantage of them? The vagrants. They're going to make it dirty, unusable, and dangerous. And of course, that is the entire point. So sick of hearing from these leftists that, oh, you demonize us so much. We really just care about affordability and healthcare. And it's like, you clearly see they're the party that keeps running around assassinating people every time they have power. They're these anti-civilizational lunatics that let out repeat offenders, in some cases arrested over 70 times, so that they go light people on fire, stab people on trains, and then still make excuses for it, still say it's mental health, right? It turns out a lot of the free handouts oftentimes don't even go to Americans. They go to foreigners and third worlders. This is what they're all about, and a prime example of it. So, honestly, maybe to a degree I'm torn on this, because on one hand, obviously, you don't want to see homelessness spark up all over the place. You don't want to see New York City turn into San Francisco. On the other hand, maybe people need to not just get what they voted for, but see in front of their face what they voted for. When that homeless encampment, pops up right down the street, thanks, Zohran Mamdani. But anyways, we'll get right into this, guys. First, though, do us a favor. If you enjoy our content, make sure you hit that like button down below and subscribe to the channel if you are new. That's the best way to support our work. It also ensures that you can stay up to date with all of the latest news and coverage. And that said, so here we just got the news announcement over the weekend that indeed, good old Zohran Mamdani, right? He's trying to figure out, what did I promise on the campaign trailer that I can actually fulfill? Apparently, it's to no longer crack down on homeless guys. All right, let's take a listen.
In just 26 days, New York will have a new mayor, Mayor-elect Mamdani, campaigned on progressive policies, and we're beginning to get a glimpse of what that may look like. Today, Mr. Mamdani announced that he's not going to focus on breaking up homeless encampments, a big change from Mayor Adams. Will the shift lead to scenes that have plagued parts of California, like in San Francisco and parts of LA? Eyewitness News reporter NJ Burkett live at Penn Station with the reaction tonight. NJ?
Yeah, Mike, good question. Mamdani clearly believes that won't happen, but his approach will have to be successful. The city's going to have to make major investments in housing, and he believes that affordability is at the root of homelessness.
Yeah, so right off the gate, that's another dumb myth that's perpetrated by leftists. Oh, the vast majority of homeless people in America, they really just are down on their luck, right? They're impoverished. We just need to give free handouts, government programs, all this stuff. No, I mean, the data shows this, but also anecdotally, everyone knows this. The vast majority of homeless people in this country are like that. They're in that situation because guess what? They're on drugs or they have serious mental health issues. And so putting them in some type of Section 8 complex where they can just run around and terrorize the people in that complex is not exactly going to fix anything there either. But of course, this is also what they say about crime policy, right? oh, the reason that Irina Zarutska was stabbed on a freaking subway was because of it's just socioeconomic factors, or the guy was having mental health issues. We should be compassionate. No, they need to be institutionalized or given help, given actual help, right? And, but they don't want to do it. And by the way, this is a problem that often comes up even when you do try to rehouse the homeless or send them to rehab. It's a voluntary choice. They're not going to do it because they're addicted to drugs. You know what you have to do? I know maybe it sounds bad, whatever. If there's a crazy crackhead on the street, I'm not saying to hurt the guy, but forcibly speaking, that person has to be institutionalized. That person has to be sent to rehab or to some type of mental institution or whatever. But of course, they will never do that because they're leftists, right? They only want to use force against like normal Christian Americans or something like that. But just right off the gate, the very fundamental premise of what he believes on this is just nonsense, and I'd like to point that out. But anyways, let's continue here. Let's hear Zohran Mamdani's grand plan on how homeless encampments will stop propping up because we're going to build affordable housing in New York City. Of course, one of the densest places on earth, right? There's plenty of room to do that. Are you just going to send them to a field somewhere? I don't understand, right? But okay.
Coldest day of the season, we found homeless New Yorkers taking refuge underground, like this woman named Harriet, who told us she needs help.
Nothing is being done.
And they have nowhere to live.
And they have nowhere to live, so they have to keep being... This is shelter is supposed to be like some
temporary,
like a temporary place.
Harriet says she doesn't know where to turn.
They found the one homeless person in New York who was actually sober. Good job, I guess.
Which may be true for many who need to stabilize their lives. Incoming Mayor Zohran Mamdani told reporters that the answer to homelessness is to provide homes.
Connecting those New Yorkers to housing, whether it's supportive housing, whether it's rental housing, whatever kind of housing it is.
When he took office, Mayor Adams faced an onslaught of high-profile crimes committed by homeless, unstable people. His reaction was immediate.
No more smoking, no more doing drugs, no more sleeping, no more doing barbecues on the subway system, no more just doing whatever you want.
It was both no,
I mean, don't worry about it. Don't you know Zohran is right? It's just because of socioeconomic factors. If you give this violent crackhead a place to sleep, suddenly he's going to stop being a violent crackhead, guys. Right? Don't send him to rehab. Drugs are fine anyway. They should be decriminalized. Under Zohran Mamdani's plan, smoking crack in the subway station's not even a crime. I'm not making that up, by the way, right? But yeah, he just cared about affordability, guys. Okay.
Nonsense and compassionate. Police officers enforced so-called quality of life violations and ended homeless encampments. They were paired with outreach workers to coax the homeless off the streets and into treatment. The severely mentally ill were involuntarily committed.
We said is inhumane.
That's not woke. You can't involuntarily commit them, guys. Okay. I mean, notice the pictures they're showing you, right? The horror stories all over New York City and the subways and all that. Yeah, welcome to Zohran Mamdani's New York City. This is what I tried to tell people. When it comes to his economic or financial promises, very likely he won't be able to fulfill basically any of them. Because he doesn't control any of that stuff, right? He says we're going to have free buses. Okay, first of all, the MTA is controlled by the state. But secondly, he says we're going to raise the taxes on the rich in order to do that. Kathy Hochul says she doesn't want to raise taxes. So, that's already out the park. But the thing he really can control on a local level are local policies, such as, say, homeless enforcement and crime enforcement. And I think you can clearly see what you're going to get. So enjoy the third world, right? By the way, as the saying goes, import a certain thing, get a certain thing. Well, I think that should also apply here. Vote for a certain guy, get a certain guy. I'm just saying, But third world New York is stand.
To walk by someone that clearly they can't.
No, see that person, that's just socioeconomic factors in action, guys, okay? It's just because the Republicans won't tax the rich. That's why it looks like this.
We said it's inhumane to walk by someone that clearly they can't take care of their basic needs.
Mamdani believes it's inhumane to end encampments and would use involuntary commitment in the rarest of cases.
If you are not connecting homeless New Yorkers to the housing that they so desperately need, then you cannot deem anything you're doing to be a success.
Dave Giffen runs the Coalition for the Homeless.
The only way we're going to solve this problem is by creating enough permanent housing such that people don't have to live on subway platforms and live on the streets. And I'm sorry to say it, but no mayor so far has done a good job.
Tonight, Mayor Adams is defending his approach.
If he's stating he's no longer going to implement a smart policy on our part, New Yorkers are going to see the repercussions of that.
Well, David Giffen credits Adams for moving some homeless into stable housing, but not, he says, nearly enough. He credits Mamdani for taking an approach that he says may be successful. Live tonight at Penn Station, NJ Burke at Channel 7 Eyewitness News.
Well, I'd like to point out that in basically any woke, left-wing, progressive, third worldist city, whatever you want to call them, that this approach has been tried, all it does is increase the homeless population. And let me explain to you why. First and foremost, the entire idea that, oh, we're just going to build more housing. Okay, in most cities, that's sort easier said than done. But again, I say, especially in New York City, where are you going to build more housing? There's not exactly a lot of empty space. You're going to tear down Central Park to build a Section 8 complex? I mean, that's a totally winning position. It's nonsense. You're not going to build more housing, okay? So you're always going to have this population of homeless. But of course, guess what happens? Even if, number one, you manage to house some people, do you know what happens nationwide, guys? Okay, do you know why, for example, the homeless population in California has exploded so much? It's because people from all around the country who know that it's much easier to, say, be homeless in New York or, formerly San Francisco, Los Angeles, Seattle, Portland, as they were before, are going to, save up all the money they have, take a Greyhound and go there. So you're never going to be able to catch up to this problem, right? That's number one. And then secondly, you notice he says that he wants to stop the, what is it called? Involuntary institutionalization, whatever it is, right? Where you forcibly take a homeless person off the street or you forcibly tell them they have to move. Okay, well, again, I say here, guys, that if the vast majority of homeless people are on drugs, and by the way, much like we've covered in Portland, by the way, these people know that as a homeless person, much like Mamdani's now implementing the same policy, they're a protected class, then what incentive do they actually have to move, right?
What I want is the same thing everybody else wants. Free shit. I mean, fuck, I don't got a job, no bills, no responsibility. I mean, it's like everybody gets money some way. Some of us do one thing, others do another. Some people just ask other people for money and stuff. For especially for non-functional drug addicts. Let's say maybe they're also criminal. Maybe also not so bright, or maybe really bright.
And it's just sad. It's a big drug epidemic, and it's scary because there's some people that are trying, but most of us, we're not. And we're, everybody's somebody's mom or sister or brother or father, and God rest our soul.
So it kind of sounds what you're saying is that decriminalization of drugs hasn't really helped matters out here.
If anything, it's made it worse. Yeah, so they decriminalized them to make them legal because that would slow things down. All it did was speed it up. Because real friends would never sell friends drugs.
When the governor of Oregon and the mayor of Portland, Oregon tell us all that this town is peaceful, that Oregon is a peaceful place, and Portland especially is a peaceful place, I want to tell you exactly why Portland is a peaceful place. Well, it's peaceful because everything is gone. Every business is shut down. Restaurants are shut down. And the people that are only roaming the streets here in Portland, Oregon, they're the ghosts. They're the zombies that Portland, Oregon has allowed to take over this city. Here in Portland, it was legal to do drugs. They literally got people addicted to drugs here in this state, especially in this city. So the only people roaming the streets here are the ghosts, the zombies. Would it be beneficial for President Trump to come in and help clean up the city? It sure would, because maybe he could do something about the zombies that are roaming the street, that are making it so people don't want to come down to Portland. Who wants to come and run a business down here when everything is vacant, where it's dangerous just to come and park your car? Yeah, Portland, Oregon does need a little bit of help. I'm not making this up just for a video. I'm showing you exactly what it's like in Portland, Oregon, because everything looks just like this. Everything is abandoned.
Yeah, well, shout out to this guy right here, Kevin Dahlgren. He does a great job of documenting a lot of the homeless situation in Portland, not just in terms of just like crazy drug addicts, but specifically how progressive policies and ideology have created this very problem, right? Because when you build those incentive structures that, hey, we should decriminalize homelessness and not really touch them or their drug use because, after all, that's very inhumane. They're the unhoused, blah, blah, blah. Then this is the exact result that you get. Worth noting, by the way, what are Zohran Mamdani's, some of his 2 top policies, right? Decriminalize drugs and prostitution, and now he's announced, don't clean up or move the homeless. What do you think you're going to get? Because after all, even if he somehow magically, in his unicorn promise world, manages to build a bunch of homeless shelters and finds places for them to live, why would they want to do that? Because if they're addicted to drugs and they're using drugs, and for instance, you go to a homeless shelter and you're not allowed to use drugs in there, then obviously they're going to stay on the street. Ask them and give them a choice. They're going to stay on the street. Now, if you say involuntarily, we're going to take you to rehab by the means of law enforcement, then that's a different thing. But guess what? Zohran Mamdani thinks that's inhumane because he really thinks these people, all these crazy fentanyl zombies, that's just a byproduct of socioeconomic factors. If you just gave them housing, right? In our socialist worldview, suddenly they'd become doctors and engineers. I don't think it really works that way, but it is what it is, right? It's tragic to see because I will say, as someone who grew up in Los Angeles County, one thing New York City always had an advantage on was this homeless issue, right? That's one thing I always thought you guys did right. You know, there's a lot of, back and forth, LA, New York, like we don't really like each other. But that was always one thing I was impressed by was, hey, New York's homeless problem doesn't seem nearly as bad as LA. Sure, there are some situations, the subway stations are really, sketchy, whatever. But overall, it's not this situation where everywhere you go, every single block, there's just a bunch of tents and no one's moving them. But apparently under Zohran Mamdani, he thinks that's a bright idea. So you have the myth of progressivism again, as I'll say. Oh, free stuff, affordability, healthcare, working class issues. And then you have the reality. You have the reality, which is they just turn your cities into dangerous, unlivable nightmares and then call you a bunch of bigoted names if you have any problem with it, right? You got a problem with the crime policy where they're stabbing you all and shooting you all over the place. You're just a racist. You have an issue with, crazy fentanyl zombies chasing you around every single subway station. You just don't have compassion for the mental health or the unhoused, right? But anyways, all right, there you have it. Let me know your thoughts on this in the comment section down below. Be sure to leave a like on this video, subscribe to the channel if you are new, and until next time, God bless and peace.